begin.
Good morning, Abraham. The stock market appears to be a very non-physical type of business. And I was wondering if you have some, if you can share with us a little bit about that. It appears to be controlled by emotions, which is what we were basically discussing yesterday. And do you have some, a little explanation about how the market works and how you could, how one would utilize their emotions to choose stock and how to play the market? And that's another thing that I like about this idea of the market is you're playing, you're not working.
Have you given him the number to the Abraham hotline?
The buy of the day.
The stock market is a very good representation of the currents of mass consciousness. When you say it appears to you to be something that is non-physical, it is because you're not actually seeing big piles of commerce being passed from hand to hand. It is all happening electronically, and that is the same as the non-physical energy that moves about. The transmissions that you are sending out are electronic too. We were visiting with a man who asked us this question some time ago, and we said to him, the stock market is a representation of the mass consciousness. In other words, it is a sort of microcosm of what's happening globally and vibrationally. And as you individually involve yourself in something that is global or universal, often you feel as if you are a very small part of it, that you have not much ability to influence it. And we would say to you that that is a good way of viewing your part in all that is. Your role is not so much to influence it as it is to understand that out there in the vastness there is an enormous amount that is a vibrational match to who you are and what you want. So your work is more to set your tone so that you will be drawn to that which matches your tone rather than you trying to influence the market. And so if you were to play with it, it could give you some very good personal schooling about how to involve yourself in the universal market of mass consciousness. In other words, if you could understand that, we said to this man, have you ever had a transition in the stock market where you profited greatly and easily and quickly? And he said, yes, I've had a handful of such events for myself and for others whom I've advised. And we said, do you remember how it felt going into it and as it unfolded? And he said, oh yes. He could actually remember the sort of current that was sweeping him. It was a sort of knowing, he described it, a sort of knowing that this was the right thing to do, a knowing that was so strong it was compelling. In other words, he would have nearly bet his life, well, he almost did bet his financial life on it. And as it unfolded, it gave him the dividends, the rewards, the success that he anticipated. So then we said to him, remember that feeling, and as you are going down your list of things to consider, ask yourself, does this feel like that? Does this feel like that? And if it does, go for it. And if it doesn't, wait patiently, knowing that that feeling will come in time if you hold yourself in that place. It is interesting as we watch those of you who have had success, that which you would call enormous success in any field of endeavor. It seems to you, and it is accurate, that those with success are the ones that get more success. It seems unfair. Why do they keep getting the success? And we say it is because they have learned that feeling tone. They know what it feels like, and they are not only drawing it, but they are recognizing it when it is there and when it is not. So if there is anything in your environment that is more like the impulse that we're wanting you to feel, the impulse to move or the impulse to stay. We can't imagine what it is. In other words, we think it would be a very fun game for you to you could play with it without investing to give yourself a sense of it, but in most cases it is not until your desire is very strong that you have any real experience, and ordinarily you have to put your dollars there for your desire to get very strong. And so it is the same answer that we give you with anything else. Set the tone and then pay attention to whether this action or this word or this thought that you are about to participate in is or is not a vibrational match to the desire that you've intended. And more than anything, it is important that you identify what your desire is and spend some time, days or even weeks or even months, identifying what that feeling tone of success is. That's where your real work is, you see. Any of you, if you would take the time to find the feeling place of the enormous success, the success then would come very easily to you. You all think that the success comes hard because most of you have not taken that first step of finding that feeling place of what it would feel like. So we would say to one who has not had success in the stock market yet, you still have had successes. You still have had those moments in time when you knew that something was. In other words, when your intuition says, this I must do no matter what anybody else thinks about it. So you can go to any of those feeling tones. It does not have to be, you can take success from anything and overlay it to any other subject and still find the same feeling. In other words, that feeling that comes forth intuitively from your gut, that is your non-physical energy concurring with this decision in this moment, does not feel different relative to a relationship as it does to a financial venture, as it does to taking an exit at an appropriate time on the freeway. In other words, that feeling of this is the thing that I must do now feels the same no matter what the subject is, you see. Somehow you make your financial things bigger and badder. They feel like greater risk to you because so much of your life is intertwined with it. But if you would dabble with it, that's why we say if you will play the 17-second game where the universe will show you how responsive it is to your thought, it's not very long before you'll have an idea about some stock, and it will be on this license plate and this billboard and this magazine, and it will come out of this one's mouth, and after about 22 hits on it, you'll say, oh. Do you think maybe?
Right now with the internet, you can research the stock market in your home office to an extent that would far exceed anything of the greatest investors in the past.
Yes.
And when you say,
which in and of itself is going to change the dynamics of the market.
Exactly.
And make it even more, as you described it in your initial statement,
more non-physical, right.
More responsive to the mass consciousness at large and not so influenced by a handful of those on the inside. The stock market is about to become more real, which
That's
really
why I'm
bothers
interested.
some of them.
But because of that, like you said, you'll get hits. You'll look at a license plate, you'll look at something, you'll talk to someone. Well, this is all happening in a few minutes on the computer.
Yes.
And it's happening so quickly, so I imagine a person would have to just sit there and do it long enough to the point where they...
Until you can teach yourself
where you can
your own
accelerate that
responses.
whole situation.
In other words, the formula would be this. Spend some time identifying what your desire is, and then spend some time fantasizing your desire being satisfied, and get very familiar with what that feels like, and then peruse the internet and feel for matches. And if you feel no match, do nothing. If you feel a match, follow it and see what happens, until with a little bit of effort you can show yourself, I'm onto something.
So just stay with one formula. Don't try and go all over the board. And only when you find that one thing when it feels right.
We are teaching one formula for all things.
Mm-hmm.
Identify the desire, find the feeling tone of it, sniff everything out to see if it matches, and go nowhere where there is not a match.
That's what I'm doing, yeah. Great. Thank you very much.
Have great fun with it.